North Texas Republican Congressman Pat Fallon of the 4th Congressional District. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
No, thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. And so let's start with the U.S. bombing of Iran. Your thoughts on the military action and now on this ceasefire between Israel and Iran.
Sure, I'll be very careful with my words, if you'll excuse me, because I'm on the House Intelligence Committee, and I certainly don't want our adversaries to have any insight into our conversation. I will say this: it's obvious that Iran's nuclear program is a lot worse off today than it was just a few weeks ago. And this is the nation state that's the largest state sponsor of terror in the world. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis are all funded by directly from Tehran. And also, they're responsible for the death of over 600 U.S. service members in Iraq. So this is a regime that definitely needed to be curtailed, and we don't want to see them go nuclear. I think President Trump took the right action. It was a decisive action. It was a very strong and a targeted surgical blow. And we're going to find out in the future just how effective it was, because we're going to see within a year, does does Iran possess a nuclear weapon in 2 years, in 3 years? And time will definitely tell there. I'm glad that there's now a ceasefire. Iran has been crippled not only in their nuclear capacity, but in their air defense. Israel really was very effective in their attacks. So hopefully this will bring Iran into the fold, and maybe they'll be a little bit better of let's say, less nefarious. We again, time will tell with that as well, but we'll see.
Do you trust Iran not to rebuild its nuclear weapon sites? And what should the U.S. do to make sure that Iran doesn't?
I 100% do not trust the theocratic authoritarian regime in Tehran. Absolutely not. President Reagan said it best when dealing with the Soviets: trust, but verify. With Iran, we know we cannot trust them, and we couldn't verify. So any agreement that we have moving forward has to be verifiable with the International Atomic Energy Agency, to give them that access to ensure that there's not the centrifuges, that there's not enriching uranium to weapons grade, things of that nature. And that's complete, open, and unfettered access. Otherwise, it's not worth the paper that it's written on, any agreement with these folks.
After Israel started its bombing campaign against Iran and before the U.S. military action on Sunday, there was a lot of angst between some in the Republican Party, those who are called or criticized as being isolationists.
Mhm.
What do you make of that split? And did that faction hurt itself given the presumed success of this mission right now?
I think the overwhelming majority of not only the Republican elected officials, but more importantly, our Republican voters across the country are not isolationists. There is certainly a portion of the party, and it's a very loud portion, that is. But I just hearken back to in between World War I and World War II. The United States chose an isolationist path after World War II, and all that got us was a larger, more destructive war in the form of the Second World War. So the world is a much smaller place now. There is a peer adversary in China that's another superpower. So we really can't. It's in the United States' best interest to be engaged on a global scale. Now, certainly that doesn't mean that we're going to be fixing every nation state, and we do have limited resources, so we have to pick our spots. But China's got a Belt and Road Initiative. They've got a lot. They're expanding their tentacles not only in Asia, but they've been very successful over the last 10 or 15 years in Africa. And that's where there's so many natural resources on that continent, and we need to be engaged, or it's going to be not only our security will be at risk, but our economy as well. And that's the lifeblood of the American, really the American system, and for our citizens. So we need to be fully engaged. We need to do it smartly. We need to have allies. The fact that President Trump, Jack, went over to Europe, and he's got European countries, Western European countries, to commit to 5% of their GDP to be spent on defense is a wild success, considering most of them couldn't commit or follow through on their 2% commitment 15 years ago.
And just on the topic of China, haven't they made inroads in our hemisphere as well,
No
particularly?
doubt. After that, thank you for pointing that out. Certainly, not only just with the usual suspects with the Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, but there are with Panama, other Central American countries. Certainly, they want to meddle in South America. Their goal. Let's be clear. The Chinese Communist Party's goal is to be the world's sole superpower, and then to have every other nation state on the planet to be in some form their vassal. And we're the only country that's a counterweight. And right now, we're still ahead. We still have the largest economy. We still have a more effective and powerful military. And we need to keep it that way. But the only way we're going to do that is to have great economic growth and to celebrate not only our freedoms, but the free markets as well, and building those alliances and building trade, fair trade, as President Trump would say, with other countries.
One other question on this whole Iran situation. 79 Democrats in the House voted this week to impeach President Trump. Your thoughts?
Well, when you do that math, that means that a majority of even the Democrats have some sanity. That would be roughly about 130, give or take, that didn't vote to impeach. That was an absurd vote. It's just throwing slop to the extreme left. When they didn't impeach Joe Biden when he took unilateral actions, they didn't do it with Bill Clinton, and they certainly didn't do it with Barack Obama, who took many unilateral actions. So, by their reckoning, Jack, that the killing of Osama bin Laden would be unconstitutional. They're wrong and they're terribly flawed and it's absurd, but they're just throwing it was unfortunately politics over country in that regard.
So let's talk about politics in the sense of this report that appeared in the New York Times recently about President Trump's goal of having Governor Abbott call a special session and include the topic of redrawing Texas's congressional districts to make them more favorable to Republicans before the 2026 midterms, presumably to add the number of Republicans in Texas to basically cushion any losses in other states. So, what have you heard about this? Do you agree with this? Should
Well,
Texas lawmakers do this?
I just did a little bit of math. I can tell you this: the members of Congress, we're largely hearing this from the media as well. There's no maps, there's no discussion of maps as far as the members are concerned right now. You look at California. I believe they have 52 members of Congress. 43 of them currently are Democrats. That's 83%. Although President Trump, I believe, got in and around 40% of the vote in California. Now, it's never perfect, but that is a chasm, Jack, of 40% down to only 17% of their seats are Republican. Now, the Democrats will say, whoa, California, we don't draw, the legislature doesn't draw the maps. We have an independent commission that does that. Well, who appoints the independent commission? There is no such thing. They drew very partisan maps. So if Texas had that same ratio, we would have 32 Republican seats and only six Democratic seats. Instead, the reality is it's 25 to 13. In Illinois, the Democratic legislature drew 14 Democratic seats to only three Republican. In the state of Massachusetts, it's 9 to 0. There isn't a Republican, and they certainly could draw at least one Republican district in Massachusetts. They simply choose not to. So the Democrats are very good at gerrymandering. I don't know how this will play out, but if you're going to take California as a model, Texas would end up with not five new net seats, it would be seven new net seats.
And I mean, is this something you agree with? If,
Uh,
redrawing the congressional districts?
I think that we should have done a better job when the legislature drew them the last time, quite frankly. I mean, in Florida, I believe they drew, Governor DeSantis said, I want to draw maps, and he drew, I think it was 20 Republican seats to eight Democratic seats. That's what he felt reflected the will largely of the Florida voter, and I would have liked to seen this. So I said I would have liked to seen that when the legislature drew back in '01. I'm going to be supportive, and we'll see what the maps. It's hard to say that you're going to be supportive of a map you haven't seen yet.
And let's talk about what's everybody calls one big beautiful bill. The Senate now has it. There was a report that just came out today as we're speaking that the Senate parliamentarian actually took out some of the cuts to Medicaid, making that virtually going to be impossible unless the Senate Republicans go back at it. So, what's your take on the Medicaid cuts, which have obviously caused and sparked a lot of criticism by Democrats?
Well, what we were doing was really more of removing fraud, waste, and abuse, and making sure people that were eligible for the benefits were getting them, and the people that weren't eligible weren't going to get them. And the Democrats, I don't know why they would criticize something like that. And I think the Senate parliamentarian was woefully overstepped in removing them, to be honest. So where we go from here is, and it's again, it's troubling to me that an unelected bureaucrat has that much power. Be that as it may, the Senate is a different chamber. But we need to pass the one big beautiful bill primarily for a lot of reasons, but primarily because we want to extend those Trump tax cuts, make them permanent. Because in doing so, I truly believe in all the experts that traditionally have been correct or very accurate in their predictions will have over 4% GDP growth. And if we have that, we can not only have a vibrant economy and get inflation down, but we can also reduce the debt to GDP ratio, which is vitally important for America's future.
Is this going to cut the debt because we're at $36 trillion dollars, and reports by the Congressional Budget Office show that the debt is and the deficits are going to only increase with this bill. So what do you say to that?
I say exactly this. The CBO was dead wrong in 2017 when the Jobs Act and the Tax Cut and Job Act passed. Their predictions were kind of doom and gloom and dire, and they were wrong. They were proven wrong. That was 8 years ago. And this is the same thing. They're basing it on a very low growth rate, that those projections over 10 years. And the people that said that the Jobs and Growth Act, or sorry, the Tax Cuts and Job Act would actually grow the economy were proven right. And they're saying that we're going to have over 4% GDP growth. Even if you throw in AI, most experts say that's another 1% just right there with AI. You're looking at 5% growth. You do that for 8 to 10 years, and we're going to not only, again, grow the economy, we're going to cut the deficit and we're going to reduce the national debt.
My last question to you is, what is it going to take for Republicans to get this passed? Because it seems like it's a lot of back and forth.
We need strong will and we need perseverance. And there is a lot of back and forth, and it is frustrating, but democracies and a republic is a bit messy in the process. I do believe we'll get there. As to when, hard to say. Could be next week. I hope it is. But if it's not, it's going to be soon thereafter, and we will produce a product because we really have to. It's great. Let's talk about Jack policy first. It's great policy for the American economy, for the American people, and for our future. And also, it'll give the American voters time to see what Republican leadership actually does. What's the consequence of Republican leadership? And it'll give them over a year to see the economy grow and inflation get under control. So when they go to the ballot box in November, they can make a truly informed decision in November 26th.
North Texas Congressman Pat Fallon, thank you so much. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Jack. You're great. Appreciate it. Take care.